Hey, everybody, you're watching and listening to the We Are Rising podcast. This is your host, Andrew Benjamin. I'm joined, it's been a long time, always Sashiburi, by CJ. How you doing, CJ?
I forgot that you've been taking Japanese lessons, haven't you?
Yes, a few classes.
Yeah, I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on.
I felt to also say, and host of my favorite JMMA podcast, Let's Talk JMMA
Ooh,
with Shuhurata.
thank you.
When's the next episode?
Ooh, we got to plan that. I mean, he's a very busy guy, obviously. But we'll have something coming up in the future.
Okay, well, hopefully you guys have something for the Nagoya show coming up.
Right.
But we are here to talk about Kanna Asakura, who just retired
Mhm.
at Super Ryzen 3 for the last match being against Seika Izawa in a non-title match, which he lost, but had a
Yeah.
good fight with. Um, so my first question, I'm going to start off, CJ. How did you come to discover Kanna? Were you following her when she was coming up in Deep Jewels?
Oh, before that, I was there pretty much from the very beginning because I don't know if viewers will remember, but Shuto essentially relaunched a new brand of Valet Tudo Japan, and it was very good. Megumi Fuji fought in it, Yurime fought in it, but Horiguchi fought in it. They had a lot of big fighters in the new VTJ relaunch they had, and that's actually where Kanna Asakura made her debut. And the reason I remember it is because shortly after she made her debut for them, Megumi Fuji actually became like one of the women's matchmakers for Valley Tudo Japan, and you could see that they were really focusing on her. And she fought one of your favorites, Yasuka Tamada, and some other things. And then I also remember her because she went to Pancrase after that. She went up in weight, and she fought Shuri Kondo, where the winner of that essentially went to the UFC. So we've been following her since pretty much the very beginning.
Um, so would she have gone to UFC had she won that fight against Kondo?
I mean, I can't say with 100% certainty, but that's back when if you wanted to go to the UFC, Pancrase was the way to go. Essentially, becoming a women's champion in the UFC was just a gateway to the UFC. And that's the only reason to explain kind of why Kanna Asakura went up in weight for the fight. Plus, I mean, as you can see now, her gym has a lot of fighters going to the UFC now, so they have that interest in that gym.
By the way, this was still when black belt was Powder Extra Chiba, right?
Yeah, Parisa Chiba and Kashiwa.
Oh, was she at Chiba? I thought she was. Was she at? Wait, was she was at Kashiwa or was she at Chiba? I thought she was at Chiba.
Pretty sure she trains at Kashiwa.
Okay, because I know she's from Chiba, so I thought she trained at Chiba. I think
Yeah,
she's.
every time I saw her, she was at the Kashiwa location, and
Oh,
the Chiba location is much smaller than the Kashiwa location.
really? The Chiba one looks big, at least on the videos.
Well, Kashiwa is the one that like Valentina Shevchenko went to.
Oh, okay, okay,
They just renovated the gym. It's like 2 stories.
gotcha. I think I
Mhm.
finally got this. Oh, okay, there we are. Thank King Silo for this beautiful PowerPoint presentation on Kana Azakura. Um, yeah, as he writes here, Wrestling Bay started training with her dad.
Mhm.
She started at 16. Rizin, I remember leading into that whole thing. Her being in high school, she was still wearing the uniform. Um,
Yeah,
tired.
so that was part of their whole marketing angle on her was she's kind of like the high school fighter. She wore her school uniform out to the ring, and if you actually go back up to the intro slide, you can see a picture of her in Japan when people turn 20. It's called like the coming of age ceremony.
Mhm.
I mean, she won the super atomweight tournament the year she turned 20, and that's her in the traditional clothing with the belt. So she was a very young fighter. I mean, even now she's 27.
Mhm.
So I mean, it seems like a very young age to retire, but I mean, she's 28 fights in, so she started very young and was very busy.
Yeah. 27 is a unique number, especially here in the United States. For
Yeah,
people that may know, I'll just look up the 27 Club. Um, Not good things, I'll just say. But I don't think Connor will go that route. What was so when she was in coming up in Deep Jewels, Pancreas, was she? Did she have the? Did she have like a following behind her where people was there like, oh, we could see her being at a higher level? Was it? Was did she have that impression or
She
that aura?
was she was lucky because she didn't actually start with like a Deep Jewels or a Pancrase. She started out with the Valley to Japan, which was getting a lot of attention because they had a lot of high profile fighters, but they didn't have a lot of female fighters, especially after Megumi Fuji retired. So essentially, she became like the poster child of their women's division. And then when she went to Pancrase for one fight, it was also a very high profile fight. So she started out running almost immediately, got a lot of attention from the start. And when she comes, I mean, I think she probably built up I can't remember exactly, but I imagine she built up a fan base pretty quickly.
I mean, like, did people were people? Did she have like what type of fan base did she have? Did she have like a Kate Lotus type fan base or a Sekizawa fan base? Like,
Well,
did they like her for more for her technique than her looks?
oh, you're asking, okay. The way that I would describe her popularity, I don't know about the early on in her career, I can't recall, but when she was in Rising and things, she had a large female fan base and male fan base, but I think she had a lot of female fans, and I think it's because they saw her as just being like a normal Japanese girl. I mean, she just looks like your average Japanese woman. She was a high school student. She was young, but she didn't like lean into like the whole sexy marketing and everything. And I think that resonated with a lot of women in Japan.
Do you think one of the things that she's also mentioned many times in interviews how she wasn't a good wrestler in school, that she was never athletic? Do you think that was also another thing? Because if you look at somebody like a Sekizawa or Reina or I'll even connect it to like an Oshima, who her whole thing is that she's the mother of twins, and all that. Do you think that was why she also kind of connected because she just wasn't this freak star athlete?
Yeah, I mean, my wife described her as like almost like feeling like a younger sister or something. Like when people saw her, she just looked like a normal person. I think that resonated a lot with people. I mean, she was a good wrestler. I think she went to in Japan's weird. Like if you're a good wrestler, you go to like or you're a good judo person, you go to a high school that focuses on that.
Mm-hmm.
So she went to one of those, but she eventually dropped out of high school because she wasn't. I mean, it's very hardcore, so she eventually dropped out of it. But she was a talented wrestler. The problem is, though, is that Japan has a extremely high level women's wrestling program. I think they've won more. I don't think I know they've won more women's gold medals in wrestling than any other country. If you probably combined all of the other countries, Japan would probably have more gold medals in it.
Is this is the one where they actually pay the women to wrestle, right? Where they kind of just like they have no jobs, they just get paid to train, kind of, right?
Well, what normally happen, yeah, don't. It's like more like they usually work. They have like a corporate sponsor or something. But yeah, they essentially just wrestle.
That's corporate sponsor. Yeah, that's what I meant to say.
It's like Kanna Watanabe had something similar with judo, where she had like, and you mentioned Saudi Oshima. That's what Saudi Oshima's husband is currently under with judo. So these high level athletes, they get jobs at big corporations where they're essentially just being sponsored by the company to train.
Gotcha. So I know, like, okay, so she lost the fight in Pancreas to Kondo. Kondo goes to UFC.
Right.
Then she has two more fights. One is before her Rizin debut, and I'm curious to know was the fight before her Rizin debut? Was that also one of those winner goes to Rizin type fights
You look.
against
Oh,
Yoon Ha Hong?
it's
Or was it?
possible.
Mm,
Um, it's possible. The issue is that you have to remember they were setting up. They were preparing to set. That's a little too early though. I don't know if that was the case. But this is when Rena was not at her peak in Rising, which she was very popular in Rising. So they were trying to put a division together around her, and so they were bringing in fighters for that.
Gotcha. And so, when she got announced for Rizin, her first fight would be against Alyssa Garcia for
Mhm.
at the open weight day one New Year's Eve show. I think that was it day one. Yes, I'm sorry, day two. Excuse me. No, that's day one. I'm sorry, day one. Yeah, I'm sorry. Was there any hype behind her debut?
I don't think particularly there was, just because I mean, it was such a big show that she kind of naturally got buried on it, which I mean is going to happen. You look at that card; the card's just stacked with legends and crazy fights. But also, I think like they're just trying to build the division. I mean, Alicia Garcia was just essentially there because she was associated with Josh Barnett. So we're bringing her there. Josh Barnett was in her corner, and Josh Barnett's very popular in certain circles in Japan. And she was there because they were trying to get fighters outside of Rena, popular Japanese fighters. I mean, I think Murata Kaneko was also on the event. So they're just trying to build the division.
You're also forgetting the most important women's fight on those 2 days, which was Gabby Garcia versus Yumiko Hota. So yeah, they were building up a women's division at all
Yeah.
weights.
Well, they had a lot of stuff. Yeah.
So I was actually there for her debut, and so I wasn't in the I wasn't in the Japanese section because this is when Ryzen where if you wanted to buy tickets, so if you're a foreigner, you bought tickets through like I guess a ticket broker, and then that's where they put all the foreigners. Because I just realized, oh wait, I'm not sitting next to any Japanese people. But while I was there, I did it did seem like there was people there. I don't know if they're from Power Extra, they were from Deep or whoever, but there was definitely kind of did have some people that were
Well, I
there
mean,
for her.
she would have people there, but if I recall correctly, the woman that was getting a lot of attention was actually Murata Kaneko. They actually like before she made her debut, it might have been the year before, at like the first Rising show or something. They had her come to the ring and like announce her intention to fight for Ryzen, and she like
Mhm.
credited with Ronda Rousey with motivating her. And so she had a pretty high profile fight on that event against Ren Nakai.
It was a terrible fight. That was a terrible fight, by the way, except for the
Yeah,
ending.
so that might have been getting more attention. Plus Gabby Garcia. So I mean, kind of we clearly have fans. She also comes from a huge family, and
Yeah.
the gym people would come as well. But yeah, that event was crazy. I mean, Tenshin's on it. He's not even in the main event.
Yeah.
Crow Cop. Yeah.
Yeah. Tension will come up later again. He's kind of important to the Kanna storyline. Um so I mean but clearly, I think they brought her in because they wanted her to get a win over Alyssa Garcia, but that didn't happen. And here's the one
No,
thing I
you're
go
right.
ahead.
They're always trying to get the Japanese fighters to win.
Mm-hmm.
And she had a strong background outside the Kondo fight. Was looking very good, had a lot of potential, and as was proven correct, she's very marketable to the Japanese audience.
Mm-hmm. I think also one of the things that I took away from this fight and rewatching her fights and kind of like is going back to the whole thing about her being a regular person. I think it's definitely fair to say that she had they call them the UFC jitters. I guess we'll call this the Rising jitters for
Well,
her
she would
first
be
fight.
very young in this fight. I mean, what was she, like 18 or 19? She would have been very young.
Yeah, and like what was it, competing in front of how many people? 20,000 ish people. Yeah, going from Pancras from deep VTJ to here. Some people can do it, and others can't. And
Well, Alyssa Garcia was also a tough opponent for her though, because stylistically, Kanna Asakura is a good wrestler who struggles against people that are better wrestlers. And Alyssa Garcia comes from a wrestling background as well. So that would have been kind of like it would have almost eliminated her strength, so to speak, going into that fight.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, well, let's talk about her fighting style. And As you can see, mostly all decisions, but followed by submissions. Kanna was a grinding lesser of lots of transitions. For better or for worse, she fought to the level of her competition. It wasn't until later in her career that she developed her striking game. And I think I don't know. I'm not gonna toot my own horn, but I think I said it best that her greatest strength was her wrestling, and her weakness was also her wrestling as well.
Well, yeah, because it was interesting because in Japan, most of the women with a combat sports background tend to come from judo. It's not even close.
So I want to go. So I apologize for interrupting, but I want to go back to that. But did she ever take judo as a kid, or was she
Not
always
that
just in wrestling?
she might have, but I mean, she only competitively competed in wrestling.
Okay.
But I mean, if you just look at like the rosters of these organizations in Japan, what, maybe 2 out of 10 girls comes from a wrestling background, where 7 out of them, the other 7 come from judo, and like the one other one might be karate or something. So just there's way more people in judo in MMA, which helped her out because it made her wrestling almost stronger because they didn't have years of training defense against it.
Mm-hmm.
But as I said, Japan has a very strong wrestling program. So when she did face people that came from a wrestling background, like Miyu Yamamoto, it just meant that she was not going to be taking these people down, and that was a big problem for her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But that being said, when her fights did go her way, she looked very much like her gym mate Ogikubo, where if she could get you down, it was going to be a long night for you, because Kanna had great stamina, and she had, throughout her career, she goes full distance, and I mean, naturally she's tired, but she looks like she can still fight. She goes all the way to the end, and she's one of those fighters that it's like a zombie almost. Like, you have to knock her out or submit her, because if you just hurt her, she's just going to keep coming forward and trying to take you down all the time.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, and sometimes it could lead to an exciting fight. Other times it could kind of just be like, you look at the time to be like, uh-oh, how much longer do we have with this?
I might date myself, but as I said before when we were talking, she reminded me a lot of Clay Guida, or like Ogikubo for that matter, where it's just like, if she gets to do what she wants to do and you can't stop her, it's probably going to be not the most exciting fight. It's just going to be her ground and pounding someone on top of them. But if you're able to make her fight for it and do a lot of scrambles and stuff, the fights are very exciting, which is why some of her most exciting fights tend to be fights she lost.
Mm-hmm. So she lost in her debut, and then I didn't know, I couldn't remember this. I thought she just stayed with Rizin the entire time, but she did have 2 more fights with Deep Jewels in between then. I didn't even know that one of the opponents she fought was Ishioka, who's disappeared. Haven't seen her in a million years.
Ishioka is a lot like Mika Nagano in that she was one of the poster childs of Jewels and then Deep Jewels. And so you can always tell who Deep Jewels is trying to promote, because if they put him against Mika Nagano or Saudio Ishioka, they're trying to give him some rub by having them beat like an older famous person.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So by the fact that she fought her, it meant that they were trying to elevate her.
Mm-hmm. Well, I also, with the fight that they gave her after her Rizin debut, which was clearly a gimme fight, Natsuki Shimo Makise, who's 0-4. I just realized when I looked up a record, and then actually, I'm sorry, 3 more times she fought in Deep. The last time being against Tomo Meisawa, who
Right.
She's retired, I think, right?
Yeah, she had a child and retired. She does but she still pops up from time to time on Deep shows doing like grappling events.
Okay, gotcha. And then I don't know if it was it a qualifying match maybe, but she had one fight against Plam and Nova in Rizin. I feel like that may have been the super atomweight kind of like qualifying match. Did they actually ever say if it was? If you happen to remember, Charlie?
I don't remember, but
Because they always do that. Because they were doing that a lot. Where like it's a qualifying match, or it was quite obviously like they did that for the lightweight tournament. I remember that being clearly,
Which fight are you talking about?
Alexandra Plamanova from Yokohama Sakura.
Alexandra Tancheva.
Tancheva. Oh, that's what her name is. Okay, yeah, sure. I'm just going by the Wikipedia.
Okay. I think we're looking at different things. I mean, it probably was.
You should have been at that show because it's at the Yokohama Arena.
Yeah, they probably wanted her to get a win before going into the Rising tournament. You need to remember, Saudi Ishioka also fought in Rising one time. I think they had her fight Miyamoto.
Oh, I was there for that show too as well.
I think there was like the mother fighter versus the mother fighter. They were like doing that whole marketing angle for it.
Oh,
but yeah, so I think they were just trying to get a couple fights, a couple wins on her record before they put her back into the first super atomweight tournament.
Gotcha. And so let's go. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say let's get into that atomweight tournament, super atomweight tournament, which much better than the one that they had. I think they had what was it, 2 years ago?
No, it's huge. Couldn't have gone better. This tournament, when it happened, was massive. It got so much attention in Japan and internationally for that regard. Mm-hmm. And it couldn't have played out better. Rena, at that point in time, was just peaking in popularity, just crazy numbers. She brought over a lot of attention from her shootboxing career. Going into this, she was winning all of her fights by like knockouts. It was great. Miyamoto lost, which I think they might have wanted to have her fight Rena again, but it didn't matter because Kanna was also there, and Kanna made it to the finals. And in doing so, Kanna beat Maria Oliveira, who's now a UFC fighter, and Maria Oliveira fought Garcia, who beat Kanna, and Maria Oliveira looked really good in that fight against Alyssa. And so I thought she was going to mess up Kanna, but then Kanna submitted her. So, I mean, it was a great performance on her part. And in this part, especially, the Rena Kanna stuff was nuts because it had this whole, like, Anakin Skywalker fighting Obi-Wan angle going on. Because, I mean, Rena is the reason that Kanna got into MMA. It was interesting because she actually saw Rena do a shoot boxing fight. And she was like, oh, I'm going to do mixed martial arts. The reason she didn't do shoot boxing is she's like, I'm a wrestler. It'd be stupid of me to start doing kickboxing, but I can go pro in MMA. And then before she went pro, Rena had her fight against Miyu. Not Miyu. She had her first pro debut fight. I think it was against an Italian kickboxer. And Kanna actually helped Rena train for that fight because she had met her at a shoot boxing show. And if you actually watch one of the older Rising Confession videos, I think Rena even bought like Kanna her training outfit, like her shoes. And so there was that whole backstory going into this main event with those Rising Confession videos and the Rising marketing promotions. I mean, you couldn't ask for a better background going into a fight.
I never knew that. I never knew that they actually trained before they fought and all that. I didn't know that there was a connection that they literally had a connection between the two.
Plus, this was around the time I believe she would have been dating Tenshin at this point, and her popularity skyrocketed even more because of that. That might have been the second fight. I don't really actually remember they started dating. That might have been the second.
I feel like Tenshin. Yeah, I feel like Tenshin. That was later when Tenshin started becoming.
Might have been the second fight because I remember in one of the Rising Confession videos, Rena teased her about it.
Okay,
so I think it was the second one, but no.
Okay.
Yeah, so in beating Rena, who was huge. I mean, the reason Rising has super atomweight is because that's Rena's weight. Rena can't make atomweight. And she's too small for strawweight. So they literally made a new weight class just so Rena could be the star of the promotion. And Kanna kind of ruined this was supposed to be a giant crowning event for Rena to be the queen of Rizin kind of thing. And Kanna rained on that parade. but it actually ended up being better for Rizin because Kanna then became incredibly popular herself and arguably had a more fights and kind of a higher quality career, at least up till now.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I remember that tournament. It kind of, when most promotions have a they want someone to win and they have an eye on who they want to win, they'll make it happen. And I'll give credit to Ryzen. Sometimes they make it obvious who they want to win, but also like they won't just like they'll roll with it. They'll
Oh, yeah.
they'll find a way to make it work.
Well, they clearly wanted this was the best outcome for Rising. To have a Japanese fighter versus a Japanese fighter final is they couldn't have asked for a better result.
And
And
sorry, go ahead.
compare this with the other super atomweight Grand Prix they had, where it was Seika Izawa, who she's becoming more into her own recently, at least trying to like market herself better. But during that time period, she didn't say a lot. She was very quiet. And then you had her against Siwoo Park, who's also doesn't say a lot. And that tournament just did not do well.
Well, because also the other thing is that had Reina not gotten injured, I think there would have been a little bit more spice behind it. But Reina got injured, and then they basically had a Deep Jewels rematch on their. And also, some people said that Park won that as well. You had a very divided.
Well, the first Grand Prix was just so perfect because of the backstory. Like you couldn't script it better. But then you come into this one, the second one, and it was just nobody cared. No one was talking about it. It generated no interest.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I mean, arguably bigger than this Grand Prix was her rematch with Rena a year later, where Rena like went full heel and came out in like the NWO
Reina World Order.
That means it doesn't get us much better than that.
Back when Rizin actually used to get international coverage. But
that was crazy, and that fight got a ton of attention.
So just so in case people don't know, but there was a time when Rizin was on Fuji TV, and this was aired on Fuji TV, the final, right?
Right.
Wasn't it one of the highest rated of Rizin's?
I think it's the top rated non-tension fight.
Okay.
And for this year, 2017, it was the peak of the night. It got like a 10 point something. Mm-hmm. And Rising did not break 10% very often on the New Year's Eve ratings.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I think that was always their unofficial goal, was to break 10%. But they never got to that level for like a average.
So I know that betting was not as weird as it was now. I don't know how in Japan what they do like in terms of like predictions, but like was it predictions from, I guess, people in media and pundits? Were they saying that Reina was going to walk through Kanna? If you happen to remember,
I don't recall what you were saying, but I imagine. I mean, Kanna had to be kind of a favorite going. For those that knew, she kind of had to be a favorite because Rena is an exciting kickboxer, but outside of Miyu Yamamoto, she had never really faced a talented wrestler before, and Kanna presented a lot of problems for her.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Which played out in the fight. I mean, once she got Rena down, it was essentially over.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. If you can remember famously, the Reina never did tap out, though.
No,
she never did tap out.
Yeah.
And she becomes the inaugural. She wins the first super atomweight tournament. Probably peak of her career, right? Probably.
After winning this title, I also believe is when she starts her YouTube channel. And
I forgot she had a YouTube channel. I forgot about that.
Her YouTube channel just exploded in popularity.
Did she get the Sky tickets?
There's so many factors playing into her popularity.
Mm-hmm.
So her YouTube gets very popular, and she also starts collaborating with Mikuru quite often. And when she's on Mikuru's channel, when he's on her channel, they're getting like over 2 million views.
Mm.
And then she starts dating Tenshin, the biggest guy in Rizin. She's just won this tournament, and all the female fans kind of see her as a little sister. You can see this trifecta of just her popularity being elevated by all these different angles.
Mm. Well, did she get the Sky Ticket sponsorship at this time as well?
Possibly, but I mean, her biggest. Remember when she got sponsored by TikTok?
Oh yes, and that too as well. Yeah, she got sponsored by. Yeah, she was
She got giant sponsors. She was very big.
I remember the Sky Ticket one though,
There
because I
was a
remember
couple years where she had the biggest social media following of any Japanese female fighter.
I remember the Sky Ticket one being. I now remember the TikTok one, but the Sky Ticket one, like getting a major airport transportation one, and I remember she was featured on billboards. I think she even did commercials. I remember, for Sky Ticket.
She did. I mean, that was back when a lot of the rising fighters doing commercials. It was kind of cool back on the Fuji TV. But yeah, she was doing that. The TikTok one to me is just the big one because that's just the giant. I think it was like her and Horiguchi had like TikTok sponsorships, something weird. But her popularity for a couple years was very high. I mean, I went to, after she won that belt, the Rising, when they had their office in Roppongi, they would have the fighters come in, and then they would kind of like do like events where they ran the store. When she did it, there was a line wrapped around the block. I mean, there's tons of people that went there to go see her.
Actually, you should have said what she was doing YouTube videos of her brother Mikuru. So yeah, she had a few more fights, after the Atom Way thing, but they're not,
there's always the whole looming thing, right? Because while she and Rena were getting all this success in Japan, Hamasaki was the Invicta FC champion in America. So everyone kind of was like, Hamasaki's the real #1 Japanese atomweight. It's kind of the general consensus at the time.
I would also say that I was also at the Reina Kanna 2 fight, and while it wasn't the domination it was in the first fight, but there was still it was still a clear talent disparity between the two.
Oh yeah, no, Reina definitely improved her takedown defense, but it wasn't enough to overcome it.
Yeah, and actually, here's some facts about that. Like you said, Kanna was one of her training partners. Unlike the Super Atomweight tournament, the rematch of Rizin 11 was semi-competitive, 3-rounder with Kanna winning. It was also the first women's main event in Rizin history, and I think, is it the only one to date as well? I think.
Oh, I would have to look. I don't know off the top of my head.
I can't remember. I can't recall there because everything. I know that Ayaka and Kanna co-main evented, I think, the next show, but I don't think there's. No, wait, I'm sorry. No. Remember, there was Reina versus Miyu too.
So I was thinking Reina might have main evented an Okinawa show.
Okay, that may be that's the one. Yeah, that was Miyu's. Was that? No, that wasn't Miyu's retirement fight yet. But I think that's the only other one. But this was the first one. And I also remember that show having an 1.5-hour intermission. I thought I was really good. I thought I was gonna lose my fucking mind at that show. But yeah, like you said, Ayaka. Sorry.
Those intermissions are something that is not missed.
Oh no, not at all, not at all. Ayaka, like you said, Invicta Atomweight champion, looming. When's she gonna come to Rizin one day? And then
it's always kind of in the shadows because Rena was training with her. And so, like, people knew of Hamasaki, and she was in all the magazines because she was the first Japanese fighter to win a North American championship. So, the looming threat.
So, yeah. I remember. So, one thing I remember about the first fight between her and Ayaka, and I don't know if you remember this, was how the audience was booing her. They turned on her. Do you remember that?
I don't, but maybe you remember.
Yes, and I had a friend who was convinced that the only reason why Kanna lost because the crowd's jeering got to her. if you go back and watch the video, you can hear like every time she gets offense in, the crowd just boos her. This was also now she was definitely dating Tench at the time. I definitely know that because he was in the audience and they showed him. I think they did the camera thing to him, and I don't know why, but a part of me was kind of like maybe that's why they turned on her. Her dating him. Do you know how there's this weird thing where like idols when they start dating, it's almost like a betrayal to their fan base. Almost.
I don't think that would have been an issue because I don't think she had that type of fan base.
Okay. That was just my theory. But I mean, I was gonna ask you like, why you think the audience was. I mean, not like it wasn't like they were cheering Hamasaki over her; they were booing her.
I would have to rewatch it. I don't remember.
Rewatch it again. It's really something else because I never heard like an audience. Very rarely does the Japanese audience like boo out of like disdain, but those felt like boos of like, we don't like you.
Who knows? I mean, Hamasaki had a lot of heat coming in, and she trains at AACC, and AACC has a ton of supporters that go to all of the fights. I mean, if you go to a Shuto event or a deep event, I mean, half the crowd might be AACC associated people, so that could have been it. Who knows?
Asian John 15 says new era.
Well,
new era. Can you expand upon that? What you mean by that, Asian John?
New era sponsored Kanna Asakura.
Oh, okay. I thought okay. What did they do? What did they do?
Like a clothing apparel, right?
That's the other thing is that what was it? There's a lot of these fighters have clothing sponsors. What was it Mob Styles?
Is it New Era? New Era is famous for like baseball hats and stuff.
Oh, okay. Gotcha. But so what was the hype coming in with Ayaka versus Kanna in their first match for New Year's Eve?
It's just kind of like the boogeyman's returning, that kind of thing, where like Hamasaki is the protege of Megumi Fuji, the consensus greatest Japanese woman fighter of all time. And she just won the Invicta Championship, undefeated. She lost at strawweight, but she never lost her atomweight title in Invicta. She relinquished it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was kind of like whoever wins this is going to be the real champion. And they actually created the championship for this match.
Yeah, I think they were kind of like because who was Ayaka's first opponent in Rizin? Alyssa Garcia, and then Mina Kurobe, and then so I think this was a fight that they were definitely trying to build up, kind of like the old generation versus the new generation.
I also think skill-wise, Hamasaki at that time was like the consensus number one athlete in the world. And Asakura really struggled against like the top three people in the division. You usually put a good fight on against them, but she never really won those fights. And even though Hamasaki was getting older, she still had the physicality and technical edge in this fight.
And then she lost the fight. They had a rematch, a little bit more competitive, but nonetheless still lost.
I think that fight's interesting to me because I predicted this going into that fight. You can watch the video. You can go back on your channel and watch the video. Or maybe it was my video shooter out. I can't remember. But at that time, Ayaka Hamasaki, her like game planning wasn't very well thought out because she became obsessed, if you listen to these interviews, with like showing that her striking was improving.
Yes.
And I was like, Hamasaki is going to try to knock her out. And if you remember, Hamasaki kind of blew her wad, and just gassed herself because I mean she was a 40-year-old woman. She like tried to knock out Kanna, and when you, as Chael Sonnen said, if you try to knock someone out and don't knock them out, that's really bad because then you're exhausted. And the problem is that Kanna has amazing stamina, and that gave Kanna the opportunity to come back. Whereas I think if Hamasaki had used her traditional fighting style, she would have been much more similar to the first fight.
But I mean, I think the consensus is that nonetheless, I think Ayaka won that. Still,
no, she won. She clearly won. I'm just saying that Ayaka did not have a very good game plan.
Oh yeah. And then, that fight was much later, but also like after losing the title, she kind of just she would like you she just she kind of just floated around Kana. And then like I mean, the matches they put up her against were interesting, but like clearly like, the Miyu fight, I knew going into that she was gonna lose. I know that she was gonna
Well, Miyu was a weird fighter, right? Because Miyu doesn't have a great record, but she has like incredible genetics. So despite being like almost 50, none of these girls were going to be more physical than Miyu. None of them were going to have better wrestling. And Miyu hit really hard for that division. And so it's kind of you had to be kind of smart with how you fought her. It just Kana had no way to win that fight.
Mm-hmm. Well, it goes back to the whole thing that her greatest strength was her wrestling and her weakness was her wrestling.
Yeah, because Miyu is one of the greatest wrestlers Japan ever produced. So there's no way she's going to out-wrestle her.
Like if you see the names here as well, Alicia Zabatella, Jamie Hinshaw, Mizuki Furuse, who I'm a fan
Hinshaw
of.
fight was good because that was the whole Bellator versus Rizin thing. And
which I don't know if that fight exists. I don't know.
It does in Japan. I watched it. It's on Unext.
I don't know. I haven't seen it. Daniel also said he claims he saw it, but I don't know.
Going into that fight, Scott Coker was like, "Oh, don't worry, it'll be aired." Never appeared.
Yeah, actually, I did see the fight because I saw the show combined. I saw like part of the show is like a fan cam. Someone on Twitter like fan cam like some of the fights, and then like if you search like you can find it on Japanese YouTube. You just had to like look up the.
Well, it was.
Kanji.
I watched a couple days ago. It kind of did very good in the fight. It was a very good performance by her, and she got a great submission win out of it. And then after that, I mean, she murdered Mizuki Furuse. It was like watching an older brother beat up his like little brother. It was big brother to her. It was just like one-sided beatdown.
Would you say though that at this point, do you feel like I don't know? Eventually, I feel like we see a point where she's kind of just not getting into it anymore as a fighter. Like almost like I won the title, and there's really like,
Kanna Asakura, I don't know if she had injuries or anything, but especially if you compare it with like her YouTube channel and her fight career, it seems like there was a very clear decline of her being interested in it.
Yeah.
Where like she started like uploading her YouTube videos like 80 days apart from each other, where it used to be like 4 a week. And it seemed like she was focusing on other things. She comes from a big family, and she's mentioned that she wants to have a family of her own. And I mean, maybe I'm just speculating, but she started fighting so young. Maybe she kind of wanted to live a normal life, but she definitely started losing interest. And there was speculation for a long time, and people didn't think she would fight as long as she did. Many of them she was going to retire earlier, just based off how she was talking and stuff.
I don't know if he has a picture here, but I guess we should also mention as well. I think by this time, Tension dumped her or cheat on her / dumped her. I don't know the exact story. It was a ring girl. I forgot the ring girl's name. Do you think that was also a factor? Maybe.
It might have been. But I mean, who knows? I mean, the problem, as you know, with interviewing Japanese fighters is they usually give like the PC answer.
Yeah.
So we'll never know the real answer for why she's retiring or anything. So.
Well, she said that she says that. Well, in the confessions video, she said her heart was not into it. I kind of take her word at it.
I'll take her word into it. No, it was like that thing where it's like she loves it so much that she doesn't want to do it unless she's all in.
Yeah.
And she's no longer all in. So.
There's other theories also I have as well. It seems like I don't know if it's a result of her retiring, but we're also seeing maybe less atomweight focus as well. Talent.
Yeah, absolutely. Rising's atomweight division, ever since the second Grand Prix, has completely crawled to a halt.
Where it used to be the strongest division, maybe, or second or third, maybe. But
it was it was getting great ratings and everything.
And then it was, with all due respect to the talent that's in Deep Jewels and Pancreas, listen, I just, a lot of them are just not not good. I don't know. Like they're just not like you could tell. Like you had to like at least you had a tier of fighters. You had the tier one. Kana, Reina, Ayaka.
Mhm.
Tier two, Miyu. Um, I'm trying to think of who else.
Dude,
Uh,
Miyu's such a weird fighter. Let's.
yeah, I'll even put Park in there. Miyu. Oh, I'll put tier one, Zawa. Tier two, Park, Miyu. Um, yeah, you just like and you had like kind of like yeah, but now it's just like tier one, Aizawa, maybe Reina if you want to put her in there, and then
Well, the
everybody
problem
else.
with the women's division in Japan is you have a lot of older fighters that seem to never want to retire, and the problem is like the younger fighters can't beat them for some reason.
Yeah.
And then also, Deep Jewels looks like they're trying to like build up new fighters. So then you have these kind of fighters that are stuck in the middle that aren't getting fights anymore. So it's kind of
Mhm.
like this weird development that's occurred.
Speaking of tier one, I should have brought up before, but Oshima, that Oshima fight where people discovered up kicks. Actually, also one of the highest rated, highest viewed fights on Rise's YouTube. I think maybe
It's the
like
most viewed women's fight in Rising history on their YouTube channel. I think it might be like the sixth most viewed video.
hmm um
Got a ton of attention. And
yeah,
as much as I love Oshima, Kanna Asakura's name is the name that drew people to that video.
hmm and would you definitely say that Oshima definitely got she leached indirectly from that got leached off
Oh,
the popularity?
absolutely. She's talked about it. It was a very negative experience for her personally because of how great the fight was. Oshima said it put so much pressure on her from other people to like keep it going.
hmm
And like to her, she was still very young in her career, and it was now all of a sudden like you can't lose because of this. So she felt like it put a lot of pressure on her. So
And then, yeah, this is what, if you want to start making like, start kind of like figuring, okay, this is when she's starting to lose her groove. When,
well,
I
the
think,
problem is Japanese matchmaking is also kind of weird.
yeah,
So like sometimes she's not facing tough opponents, but she's facing like popular fighters. I mean, like, when she fought for example, like wasn't a great fighter, but I mean she was very popular, so that
mm.
fight made sense. Um,
But also like if you look like she has like these long layoffs, like these absurd, and I don't know. I was always thinking like, is that the matchmaking or is that her? And I think at this point, it was probably her.
she may have been injured. I don't know. That's always a possibility. You have to think with fighters,
Oh no, I'm just
but
looking. So like July 31st, 2022, Siwoo Park, and then her next fight after that was the Mae Yamaguchi fight a year later, and then after that, over a year later, the Izawa retirement fight. And I'm just like, those are long. Like if she was, I don't know if she got the Park one. Maybe I could get that because that was a tournament, maybe, and maybe Park. She looked bad in that Park fight, by the way. That was that's the
yeah.
only time I'll ever say that like she looked terrible in the fights.
Well, let me mention. I think if we're going to look at a fight where she probably would have been like the decline of her heart no longer being in it, was probably the second Hamasaki loss.
hmm
And the Siwoo Park fight was very bad. And I wouldn't be surprised if she didn't get like injured or something in that fight. I mean, she didn't fight for almost a year.
hmm
But I mean, she was essentially knocked out at the end of that fight.
Yes.
That fight was weird because it was like Park refusing to finish her, like just letting her take more damage. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Park is
Eh,
like the most risk adverse fighter of all time now. So
Well, then you told me that she doesn't have knockout power, but she's got punching. She's got that
TKO.
weird thing where she can knock you out, but like her punches still hurts. I guess
Park has TKO power where
that
she'll
was
like
that TKO
stun
power.
you with numerous strikes, but she dropped Oshima. I mean, Asakura, I think at the very end of the fight, but no, that was a very bad one. She didn't fight for almost a year after that. I think she probably got injured or something.
hmm
And after that, I just don't think her heart was in it. I mean, I think the Hamasaki 2 fight though would have been the start of the decline.
And if you look who they were putting her up against, these kind of like lower level tier fighters.
We'll
Um,
see. the problem, see, if you look back after the first Hamasaki loss, she's still getting high quality opponents like Miyu, Zapatella, Henshaw, so she's getting probably. But after that one, I mean, Satomi Takano, older veteran, Siwoo Park. I mean, Park isn't the most. Park's a good fighter, but I mean, she's not like making any headlines. VV May, I mean, I think that's older veteran. Then Izawa in a clear retirement bout.
So in King Siro's PowerPoint, he says striking improves without results. That's one thing I don't think she ever like. Is that the one thing as well about a lot of Japanese fighters? Is that if they're good at something, they kind of just stick with it. And you kind of brought this up with the Ayaka thing, where she was like, "Oh, I'm going to show my striking, but my striking is." Do you think Kanna?
Well, I think it's kind of a criticism, more of just like the general Japanese gym structure right now. Just that a lot of fighters just train at one gym their entire career, so they don't get a fresh perspective, they don't get a fresh outlook, and so their training just kind of stays the same. And I kind of disagree with the point that her striking got better. If you watch her early fights, her striking's pretty much the same level her entire career. She would just use it to set up her takedowns. She would throw kicks, punches. I mean, the best way to describe her is she's just female Ogikubo.
Yeah.
Makes sense because they train together.
So, I mean, let's talk about her last fight, Izawa fight. Kind of like, you know, hey, I never knew she had this dog in her. And I remember when this fight got announced, I was like, why the fuck are you doing this? This fight makes literally zero sense.
Where they're trying so hard to make Izawa a star, to try to like jumpstart the division, and it's just not working for some reason. But
I just don't think she just nothing. She just can't connect with people. She just like that, like Kanna.
Yeah, they're still looking for the way to market her that people like, and just
she's
hasn't
good.
Yet.
That's the thing. She's good. She's great at MMA. That's what she is, and unfortunately, that's kind of like. I don't know.
Yeah, but you're good at MMA, you have to do what Hamasaki did, because Hamasaki is also kind of a quiet person.
Yeah.
And what do Japanese people want you to do? They want you to smash foreigners.
Yeah.
So they got to bring over foreign fighters. Let's have Izawa represent Japan. Do the whole like Inoki thing in wrestling where he beats up all the foreign wrestlers.
But also, I think that one of the personal things as well about Ayaka is that she was working at a senior citizen's home or like an old person's. Like you gotta find that thing that connects regular people with you. And you know, with Kanna, you know, like you said, the big sister thing with her.
Well, the Hamasaki thing was that I've heard numerous people describe her as she had like this cool aura to her, where women would look at her as like she's cool, like she's a badass. And yeah, I think I don't know what it is. I mean, they'll figure it out eventually with Izawa, I guess. But the beating up retiring beloved fighters isn't the best way to build your fan base.
Yeah,
and I mean,
if Izawa doesn't retire though, Izawa said she's gonna retire soon though, so they don't have that much time.
Did she say that?
I thought she said that. I feel like all these these new generation female fire savers, they're gonna retire by 30. I feel like that's what they all say.
Yeah, they all say that. I think Fujino Emi said she was gonna retire when she was like 35. So
that's funny.
I mean, they all say that. I mean, Rena's retired like 8 times now, so we'll see.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you say one thing about Kanna, she has incredible heart, and she never quit. And Izawa thought that she could kind of bully her, and the problem is that you can like try to submit her and stuff, but if you don't get it, she's not going to quit. And when the fight came to the end, she got those cool stomps and really went for it. I mean, Izawa clearly won the fight, but Kanna didn't go down easy.
Well, is it almost you can almost say that Izawa won the battle but lost the war? Is that what it says?
I'd say that if you're not looking at the results of the technical results of the fight, but the perception of the fight, The final moments of the fight are kind of stomping and punching her on top, which she is more beloved, so that's what everyone wanted to see. And then she retired. So I mean, it was a good retirement fight.
Mm-hmm.
She had the last big moment of the fight was hers.
She got a nice little retirement ceremony at the end as well. 10-bell salute. I wish they wouldn't do the 10-bell salute though, because I always associate that with death.
Doesn't this come from wrestling?
Yeah, something like that. Something like that. Yeah, and it's just like, yeah, they're not dying. Actually, I want to ask as well. Do you know what she's doing now? Has there been?
She's not doing anything. Said she's kind of just looking to see what she wants to do next.
Okay, so bare knuckle is will be next on the docket, because that's what all retired fighters do is bare knuckle.
She's still uploading stuff to her YouTube channel and stuff, but I mean, she had like a retirement party at her gym, which makes me think maybe she's not going to be going there anymore. So who knows? We'll see what happens.
Gotcha. So we got 5 fights to revisit from Kanna's career. Obviously, Sekizawa, like we just mentioned. Oops. Hamazaki 2. I could agree with that. Oshima, number 3.
This is, in my opinion, this is the most fun one.
Also, it put up kicks on the map as well. Number 4, Maria Oliveira, now UFC fighter, like you said. And then
she's one of Jessica Andrade's training partners at the time.
Oh, really? I didn't know that. Oh, okay. And then Reina 2, which I can contend that yes, that was a fun fight. Something I just realized right now. I never realized this till now. She puts her first name in katakana.
Yeah.
Do you know why she does that? I just realized that right now. I just never knew that. I never recognized that till now.
Some fighters just do that. I mean, some people have their names. Not everyone has their name in kanji. But
oh yeah.
A lot of Japanese fighters also like differentiate their fight name with their actual name. If that makes sense.
But that is her. That is her. Yeah, that is her real name.
But her real name is kanji.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So a lot of fighters, when they make like their fight name, you get like people like Kate Lotus or people like making up fake names.
Yes.
But
did she ever get a fire nickname?
Well, the katakana is like her nickname because her actual actual name is in kanji, but katakana is like cool to Japanese people.
Okay, but did she ever? But she never got like a fire nickname like Izawa's Starflower or Reina's is a shoot boxing queen. Did she never get anything like that?
I mean, shoot boxing queen, like it's not.
I know it's not a nickname, but like I don't know.
A lot of Japanese fighters, like their nicknames are like when they go abroad and stuff.
Oh, I see.
Shima's nickname, Little Giant, was given to her by
Black
Combat.
Yes.
A lot of these Japanese fighters don't have nicknames, or they just like fight under a different name. So now she never had a nickname. I mean, look, they have a nickname on her Wikipedia. It's like the Tackling Girl or something. Like,
I don't know why that's such a funny the Tackling Girl.
What does this translate to? It's like the Tackling Girl.
I don't know why that's so funny to me for some reason. That sounds like a Japanese nickname though. That does
pure and innocent tackling girl.
It's a tackling girl.
So there you go.
Okay.
No, but also Sekizawa's nickname of Starflower is just a literal translation of what her name means.
Okay. Oh yes, yeah. I forgot her kanji was like or it was like flower, right? Or like
star and flower.
That was it. Yes. So what would you say Kanna Asakura's legacy is? This is what King Steel says. Most fight time in Rizin FF history, most exciting when fighting from behind, always displayed sportsmanship and remain drama free, increased female MMA fan base. That's definitely true. And along with Tsuruya, helped create the Black Belt Japan gym training environment with fighters like Shigeta and Karen.
Yeah. I'd say her legacy is that if Rising had a quote unquote golden era of women's MMA, she and Rena were it. They were, as of now, they were the peak of women's fighting in Rising. they drove it to popularity levels that it's just completely fallen off since then. And in doing so, she made a ton of female fans as well and brought them to women's MMA as well. Plus, I mean, you have young fighters like Honoka who says that she is the reason she became a fighter. So she motivated a lot of young women to start fighting, and that'll be her legacy.
What about, would you say that was also Rizin's gold peak era, just in general?
With me personally?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Me too. I know that now they get,
Rising's a better business now. They probably make more money than they've ever been making, but the pageantry and the matchmaking that happened in those first couple of years was truly magical. And
I felt like most of the divisions were on fire, and then they would have like those one-off matches with like, I don't know, Andy Sauer versus whoever. I was still interested in stuff like that.
Oh, but just the presentation, though. I mean, that one Rena event, I think it was in Osaka, where she came out and they had cherry blossoms like falling from the ceiling and everything. I mean,
yes.
They really went into it hardcore. It was kind of like a continuation of Dream and Pride, where that just doesn't happen anymore.
Oh, no, not at all. Where do you think
she kind of had, marketing wise, her entrance music was iconic. Like it was like a wrestling show. When her song hit, you knew it was her coming out.
Yeah. Actually, what was her music? She what was it like that?
This female rapper named I. It was like la 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 la. It was very like upbeat, girly song. Girls like the song, so it's very obvious. But no, it was very good because like as soon as that song hits, like it was just like the Stone Cold Stunner glass breaking. Like they knew exactly who it was, and they would go wild.
Do you think that? So we got this ranking of all-time atom weights, and King Seal lists Hamazaki, Zawa, Ham, Penne. That's one thing I wish we could have gotten. It was Ham versus Kanna. I think they would have had it eventually if Ham stayed and didn't become a prisoner to one. Who's I think she's had one fight there. I think maybe.
She fought for the title.
Oh, she did. I don't even remember this. Dalboni, Watterson, Reina, Kurobe, Sugiyama. I don't know if I'll put a few of those names on there. I would maybe.
King was very generous with his list. To me, if you're talking about the number one atom weight in MMA history, it is either Hamasaki or Ham. Hamasaki had more wins over Ham, but I think Ham peaked later in her career. And the fact that as little as Ham is, and she still competed as well as she did in the UFC, speaks very. I mean, she got fight of the night in Korea, so I mean, she did very well despite being tiny. And her Rising run was wild. I mean, she had some great fights in Rizin. And I think Izawa was still too young. It's not her fault that she's been beating up older retirees.
She's also only had like about 13 or 14 fights, right?
I know, but she just keeps beating up these people that are like near the end of their career.
Oh, I agree. But also like Hamazaki went through a whole bunch of went through tons of more fighters than her. So did Ham. Heck, I'll even put Kurobe on there as well. But like Izawa's still young in her career. Like
Izawa's still young in her career. I wouldn't put her on here yet. I would wait to see what else she does because Hamasaki and Ham went to other promotions, fought their way up the ranks, and beat legitimately number one contenders.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a stretch when Hamasaki was in Invicta where she was fighting like very good fighters every fight. And Ham as well when she was in Road FC and when she was in Rizin and when she was in the UFC when she was beating very good people. And I don't know why Jessica Penne is on this list. And she was a good fighter, but she got like plagued by failed drugs.
I'd rather put on what's her name? The one that called Rizin the B-side.
I like her, yeah.
Jessica. Oh my God, I'm forgetting. I've talked to her before. I can't believe it.
Jessica girl, yeah.
Yeah.
problem is like he also on this list. Man, he's just going to Chris with a list, but I mean, right now,
Mm.
Kanna Asakura was because you got to think like women's MMA is behind men's MMA.
Mm-hmm.
It's just because it got brought into promotions later. Like women's MMA didn't come into the UFC until the UFC had existed for like 20 years or something crazy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So Rena is still kind of like a highlight of kind of like the old UFC where it's like she comes from a kickboxing background, but we're going to teach her some grappling and then throw her in there. Kanna was kind of like the first person who started her MMA career. She had not had any other combat experience like kickboxing or anything. So she was kind of like that first generation. She was like a Frank Shamrock-esque fighter. And in doing so, she kind of paved the way. But when other fighters came in that came from higher level wrestling, I just think she was going to be able to compete against them. So it's hard to put her as like in the top greatest of all time. But impact-wise, I mean, she might be. It's just her and Rena. No one's had bigger impacts than those two.
I think you hit the nail on the head. It's like, listen, Hamazaki, I think, is a much better fighter, and Ham as well. But just excuse me, not Izawa. Kanna's impact, like what she did. She opened like listen. They weren't going to build a vision around Hamazaki, Not at all. They weren't going to build a vision around Miyu. Most likely, no. They would have her, but they wouldn't build the entire thing around it. But Reina and her, yes, absolutely. This was something you could build around, and
the truth's in the results. I mean, when they were fighting at their peaks, they were having 4 times as many atomweight fights a year as they do now.
Yeah. And I don't know if that was what they were thinking was going to happen. I don't know because atomweight was still weird at the time. I don't know if they thought that was going to blow up, but nonetheless it did. And yeah, like you said, the results show. And we even got UFC potentially contemplating having atomweight.
I don't believe that at all. Dana White said that also 10 years ago. So
he also said there was never going to be a women's fight in UFC as well.
Yeah, I mean, for him to bring you in, he won't start a division. He'll need like a existing star to mooch to bring in.
Yeah.
This doesn't exist at this moment.
It's also the same company that almost cut flyweight. If it hadn't been for who was it?
Mighty Mouse losing.
Yeah.
Henry Cejudo, whatever his name was.
No, what was it? Was it Moreno and God of War? Figure. It had been. I mean, they sold Mighty Mouse. They traded Mighty Mouse for Ben Askren. That's what they did. That's what
I know.
Yeah, fair trade. Yeah. But is there any other things about Kanna that you think are important to mention, CJ? Anything that we didn't hit on?
I think we hit on most everything. It's just that I think outside of Japan, it's hard to realize her impact, but in Japan, it's kind of like her brothers inside Japan, but Mikuru and Kai aren't the best MMA fighters in Japan, but their impact is undeniable. And I would put Kanna in that category.
Mm-hmm. Was she said anything on social media or anything? Has she is she doing it?
She's updating it. I think she's just living her life.
Just living life. Is she dating? Is she back to dating now? Hopefully
I think Izawa tried to hint that maybe she thinks she's retiring because she got married. But
I remember that. Yeah.
Kanna said that that's not the reason, and that she's actually single or something. So.
Okay. So yeah. So J Wolf, you can still have a chance if you want to climb up the Kanna tree. Yeah. So other than that, CJ, we're almost out of time. Where can people reach you? Where can people find you?
Well, Twitter, Instagram. You can find me on sogo-kaku.com. All my stuff's on there. So just go there.
And hopefully soon another Let's Talk JMA.
Yeah, we can hope.
Great. And for everybody that tuned in, appreciate it. Everybody that listens, appreciate you as well. And we'll see you for a Rizin Nagoya preview sometime next week.